There you go. Okay, welcome. What I want to do first tonight is, if you want to take a look at your exam, I don't have them with me tonight, but what I'll do is I will bring them to class next week, and after class, you're more than happy, or I'm more than happy to let you review the exams and take a look at the questions, whatever it is. I also want to invite those students who are in the distance learning class. I don't scale the grades or anything, but it was very obvious that the students in the on-campus class did better than the students in the distance learning. So anyone who is in the distance learning class who would like to join us, if you'll let me know, that's fine with me. This is building, does somebody know what the building is?
It's the education building.
Yeah, it's the College of Education building, and it's room 2120. So if you would like to join us, you're more than welcome. And if you need the number of the building, if you'll email me, I'll get you the exact directions. The next thing is that the first test covered several topics. It may appear to be 3, but it was about 4 or 5 topics, very superficially. Okay, and we skimmed across the top of criminal law, wow, and very much so in intentional torts. I think we only covered 3 or 4 acts in labor law. That's a whole semester subject. Employment discrimination, another semester or 2. So we really did sort of skim across the top. But things are going to change a little bit. Right now, we're going to take a new subject, contracts, but we're going to study it in depth. That is, for the next, several weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many weeks, we're going to be studying contracts. So while if you didn't understand the concept or missed something in criminal law or even labor law and you didn't know one of the statutes, you may have missed a question or 2 on it. But if you don't understand the basic concepts here in contracts, it's really going to put you in a hole. Okay? So, by the way, I think everybody did pretty well on the exam. I don't remember the statistics, but overall, I wasn't disappointed. Could have been better, but wasn't disappointed. Now, let's talk, first of all, just a little introductory thing about contracts. And this group is a little bit older than some of the business law classes I teach, so you may not feel it necessary to listen to this part, but particularly with the younger students, I try to emphasize how important contracts are, that you are going to enter into contracts every day for the rest of your life. Okay? Whenever you purchase something or sell something, that whether you purchase a Starbucks or a tank of gasoline, a textbook, a pencil, Taco Bell or whatever it happens to be, whatever you buy, those are all contractual. Now you may not think of them as contracts, but really they have the same characteristics as a taco. Pretty much has the same characteristics and requirements as purchasing a car or a house, a share of stock, a private jet, a yacht, whatever, a diamond ring, a mountain chalet, whatever you wish to purchase. So we're going to learn the basics of contracts tonight. And there are several sources of contracts. Much like criminal law, we adopted our concepts on contracts from the British. And so we use a historical perspective that the British started and that we continue to use. And every now and then you'll see a citation to actually a British case. Not very often, but once in a while. And so that's one source of our law. Another source of contract law is the state. Okay, the state can pass regulations, statutory regulations on contracts. And another is, actually this is still statutory, but it's a little out of the ordinary. We had a group of people, and you gave me the pencil, but did I?
Yeah,
here it is. A group of very smart people realized some time ago that as the United States got smaller and smaller, at least from a contractual perspective, I mean, at one time, I don't know, it took several months to cross the United States from East Coast to West. And then once railroads were here, maybe it was several days, and now it's several hours. Well, in contracts, all those distances and times also became much, much, much shorter. And so while initially in our early stages, it would be rare that you would deal with someone contractually outside your community, simply because the distances involved made it prohibitive. Now, of course, with Amazon and eBay and cell phones, that you can make purchases from anywhere in the country. Somebody in Minnesota can make a purchase of personal property in Florida, shipped by a trucking company out of Georgia, and so on. And what that leads to is that each of the 50 states don't need to be making their own contract law, or at least in certain areas. When it comes to personal property, we're way better off if we have one set. We don't want attorneys having to reference New York law and Texas law and Indiana law and California law, all if there's a breach in one contract, or what terms mean, or how contracts are enforced. So these very smart people, I was not one of the group, I might add, got together and decided to develop a set of common laws, of uniform laws. And strangely enough, they called their laws uniform. Hey, how about that? I want to make this bigger the next time I erase it. Okay, uniform. And since it was to be about business, they also called it commercial. Another name for business, right? A synonym anyway. And they didn't call them uniform commercial laws. I don't know, they could have, or statutes or regulations, but the laws of the United States are called the United States Code. So they just decided to call it code, like the laws of the federal government. And so they developed what we now refer to as the Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC. And what this did was it set up a uniform set of laws in dealing with personal property. Okay? So that when people dealt with personal property from one state or another, they needed to know, and now they could know, that all the states basically had the same laws. So these people went around to each state legislature and said, you need to pass this and codify this into your state laws. And Florida did. In fact, every state did. Just as this is not for the test, but as a matter of trivia, does anyone have an idea on the state which had the most problems with the Uniform Commercial Code, and why you think they had those problems? So there are only a few of you here, so you have to help out now. Anybody? Come on, take a guess.
California.
Well, actually, a good guess, because California does have a lot of odd situations, but it's not California. But actually, I would have guessed California, but there's kind of a historical reason.
What year was this?
New York.
Oh well, the statutes were passed. I don't know in the early part of the 1900s, but I think I really don't know when they were passed. But we had, let's say, 48 states. I don't know if we had Hawaii and Alaska then. New York, a very commerce-based state, so another excellent guess, but still wrong. It's actually more simple than you're giving it. You're thinking it.
Massachusetts?
No,
Florida.
not Massachusetts or Florida, but
Florida.
Louisiana.
I was going to say that because of the French.
Yes.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
That is because of their French heritage. The laws of Louisiana was controlled by the French government for many years. And because of their French heritage, their laws weren't based on the British system. Of course, I mean, I guess it would, they had no interest in British. Theirs were based on what we refer to as the Civil Code, or sometimes referred to as the Napoleonic Code, or French law. So they had more trouble merging the UCC with their legal concepts than the other states did. And we purchased Louisiana. I don't think that was your question, but I think we purchased it in about 1803 from Napoleon. A big chunk of America was purchased from France at that time. I think Napoleon needed the money. He was fighting some wars in Europe. Okay, so but Louisiana has adopted it as well. So now we have this set of laws. Now it doesn't apply to everything. It applies to business, and business is really personal property. Chairs and desks and computers and clothes and water bottles. It does not apply to things like real property, because you can move real property from Florida to Minnesota, right? So it doesn't apply to things like real property or insurance or services like how you license doctors and lawyers in your state. Who cares? Because that's limited to the state. The state has the authority to do those kind of things. So we're really talking about personal property, things, because those are the objects that cross state lines and where people are in one state are going to be making purchases from another state. Okay? Now, what I'm going to put up next is all you need to know about contracts. And we're going to go about a chapter and a half tonight, by the way. So what I want to do is list, and people often ask me the definition of a contract, and I never give the same definition because I'm not memorized it and not particularly interested in you memorizing it. But if someone were to ask me in its most simple terms, I would say a binding promise. How to make promises binding, okay? Legally binding, so that the promise made between two people becomes enforceable. So now I'm going to give you the answer to the most difficult question here. If I can, don't tell me I've already, oh no, here we go. First I want to make it bigger, and then I just want to erase it. And then, are you sure you want it clear? Yes. Okay, now let's see if I did it right. Yes, okay. You know what I'm going to try? Offer and acceptance. Some books, including yours, refers to this as mutual assent, okay, or agreement. First requirement, okay? And there are four, by the way. So the first is every contract that we talk about is going to have an offer and acceptance. Two people have to agree. Contracts are volitional. That is, you're not forced into a contract. You know, when you reach a certain age, you don't have to enter into contracts. There's nothing required. It's not like having to go to school or anything. So if you don't want to enter into a contract, you don't have to. So they're volitional. And these requirements, by the way, are in no special order. Okay. The next one is capacity. Now, capacity has nothing to do with how much you can drink, but in fact, the mental ability of the parties to the contract to understand the nature of the contract. And as we get into the chapter on that, we'll discuss that in more detail. The third requirement is consideration. I kind of like this with my finger. Okay? Consideration. And consideration has nothing to do with how nice you are to people, but in fact, in its simplest terms, consideration is what you give up in order to get what you want. Okay? Now, so a common example would be you give up money. I mean, you want to get a latte, frappe, vende, whatever it is you guys drink at Starbucks, and you give them money and they give you a drink. Now, you may say, no, I don't give them money, I give them a charge card. Well, that's a monetary equivalent. Okay, that's just like money. And in fact, I think we'd be better off if we used more money. People wouldn't spend it quite as fast as they do plastic. But you give them that. I talked to a young man in a class several semesters ago, and he had a question about consideration. I said, well, where do you get the money that you use to buy things? And he said, my employer. And I said, great. So your employer's consideration gives you money. Your consideration, excuse me, is that you work and that you give effort and you think. And he said, no effort. I don't really think much about it. And I had to stop for a minute and I said, how about time? Do you give your employer time? He said, yeah, I am there. I don't really do anything, but I do give up time. And I said, consideration. Do you understand? Your time is good consideration. And we can have some nebulous things that can be good consideration. We'll talk about those. Giving up a right. You may not value the right, but if someone else does, it's good consideration. Okay. For example, you may give what's called a forbearance. That is, you give up a right, or you give up the right to exercise a right. For example, you may, if you've ever been in a fender bender, even a small one, and the insurance company for the other driver sends you a check, and let's say it's very, very, very minor, and they send you a check for, I don't know, $5,000, and that repairs your car and leaves some extra money, and you say, well, the repairs were only this much, and they say, well, the rest of it is for a forbearance, your agreement not to sue us. So this is it. You take this $5,000. If it turns out that later you have headaches or later something was broken on the car that they didn't find, you're agreeing never to come back and ask us for any more money. Okay, a forbearance. You're giving up your right to sue. Okay. The value in the consideration. A lot of students want to say, well, Lady Justice has the scales in there. No, that's not what the scales of justice are at all. In consideration, we don't check values. We just check consideration. Whether it's worth a dime or a dollar or $1 million, if we have consideration on both sides, we don't worry about one being worth $10 and the other side being worth $100. Courts do not value consideration. Okay. We'll talk about that later. The fourth thing I think is very obvious is the contract must have a legal basis. Now you can call it a lawful object, legal basis, lawful, any of those words. Many books and authors and articles use different terms. But the point is that in our society, we don't allow the satisfaction of conflicts between people when the contracts are not legal. So if you're buying a kilo of cocaine and the person selling it to you shorts you some cocaine or doesn't give you the quality of cocaine that you thought you were getting, can you go to court and sue the seller and say, Judge, he promised me, I don't know if this makes any sense, 99% cocaine, and this is only 93% cocaine. So he owes, there's a monetary difference in value. Nope, you can't do that. If the contract doesn't have a legal basis, then you can't use our judiciary or our legal system to solve problems which come out of the contract. Okay? Someone asked me, well, how do drug dealers settle disagreement? I don't know. Do they shoot each other? I mean, if you watch the news in Jacksonville, almost every day somebody gets shot. I hope that most of those are bad guys shooting bad guys. But every now and then somebody gets caught in the crossfire. So if you're a drug dealer, I don't know what you do. You don't come to me. Now, I'm going to draw a squiggly line right here, intentionally. Those are the 4 requirements for a contract. But some contracts have one additional requirement. And that additional requirement, although very rare, certainly is possible. And it is that the contract must be written. Okay? Now, in terms of numbers, the percentage of contracts that have to be written, my guess would be much less than 0.1%. In terms of value, we find characteristically that the higher value contracts have to be in writing. And for right now, I want you to forget about that requirement. Or in a minute, we're going to ask one more question, and then we're going to forget about that requirement until we get to it in the book, because it just confuses you if you try to remember it. Okay? Questions on these? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Once you master that, you master contracts. Questions? Okay. Now, unfortunately, there are some classifications of contracts, sort of beginning language of contracts. So we're going to quickly go through those, and I'm just going to list them and comment quickly on them. Okay? We have express contracts and implied contracts. Express contracts are simply contracts which are spoken or written. Spoken or written, that's pretty clear, I would hope. On the other hand, implied contracts are neither spoken or written. Well, how can you have an implied contract? Well, how about something like a person is injured in an automobile accident. He or she is taken to the hospital unconscious. The physicians at the hospital fix the broken leg or whatever it happens to be. The injured party finally regains consciousness and could honestly say, I never asked that doctor to set the bone or fix my leg or my arm or my head, that'd be true. But our legal system says, no, there's an implied contract there. That if you had been conscious, you would have asked for that. So we're going to make you responsible for that or pay for that, okay? Even though you didn't. If I go over in, well, I don't use it here, but if I needed a magic marker, I'll hold this up like it's one, but it's not. If I needed a magic marker and mine was out of ink and I went over to the bookstore and got one, but there's a long line, so I just hold my hand up and I catch the eye of the clerk on the way out, and she gives me a thumbs up, I give her a thumbs up. What I've told her without speaking, okay, without writing, is that I'm taking the magic marker and that at some point in time I'm going to come back and I'm willing to pay a reasonable price for the magic marker. Implied contract, implied. So you try to stay away from implied contracts, but as you can imagine, there's some circumstances, the automobile accident, where isn't much you can do. I mean, I guess the options are let the person die or regain consciousness. And if they don't regain consciousness, we let them die. Well, that's not really a viable alternative. So implied contracts do make sense in some situations. Okay. The next classification, you flip over, bilateral and unilateral. What does bi mean? How many?
Two.
Yeah, sure, bilateral. And while we'll have contracts that may have more than two people involved, we'll refer to most of our contracts as bilateral contracts, and my examples will be two people, okay? Bilateral. Okay, so that makes sense. Everybody understands that. Somebody has to make an offer, somebody has to make an acceptance. But what about a unilateral contract? Is that like a New Year's resolution? You know, you promise to exercise more, eat more kale and seaweed, eat less chocolate ice cream and cupcakes. Is that what that is? And promise to lose 5 pounds this year or something? You make a promise to yourself? Well, I encourage you to do that and fulfill them, but that's not what a unilateral contract is. Unilateral, or una, means one, and so we're talking about a one-sided contract. Well, how can you have a one-sided contract? How about this? How about if I lost my watch and I came to class and I'm distraught and I say, to everyone in BUL 6138, I will make this offer. To the person, but only people in BUL 6138. To the people in this class, if any of you find my watch, I'll give you $50. Okay? Now, clearly, I'm one side of the contract, right? I'm making an offer of $50. But who's on the other side? Who's accepting? Who am I making it to? I don't know. And if one of you were to raise your hand and say, Professor, I promise to go find your watch, I would say, that's not good enough. That's not what I want. I don't want somebody to promise to look for my watch. I want my watch. And that's the person. And the only person with whom I'm going to make a contract. So that would be considered a unilateral contract. That is a contract in which we know one person. And what I'm doing in a bilateral contract, what I'm saying is, I promise to give you something if you promise to give me something. I promise to give you $200 if you promise to paint the room. I promise to give you X number of dollars per week if you promise to work for me. Okay? In a unilateral contract, I make a promise. I promise to give you $50. But if you notice, on the other side, I don't want a promise. I want an act. In this case, the act would be, buy and return the watch. I don't want any promises. Other examples of unilateral contracts might be, I think homecoming is coming up here at the university. I don't know that you guys participate, but if you do, maybe there's a contest for the first student to climb the flagpole or catch the greased pig or who can eat the most hot dogs in 1 minute. Okay, if I were to offer a prize for that, the student that makes the highest grade in the class, the person that meets the most popcorn. Now, you can say, well, I'll climb the flagpole, or I'll catch the pig, or I'll eat the most hot dogs. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person to do that. You understand? Again, an act. And you can do it in more mundane situations. there's a kid in the neighborhood who does a nice job cutting the grass. When he does it, just not dependable. And I've decided I'm not going to make promises to pay him if he promises to cut the grass. Last time he came by, I said, Joey, I'll give you $25 to cut the grass. And he said, oh, yeah, I promised to come do it. I said, oh, no. Well, that's not the deal. The deal is, I promise to give you $25. You cut the grass. We don't have a contract. You accept and complete the contract by cutting the grass. Now, if he just cuts half the grass, do I owe him any money? And the answer would be no. The offer was to cut the grass, to find the watch, to eat the most hot dogs, whatever it was. But whatever the prescribed act is, has to be completed in full. That's the only way a person can accept my offer. Question?
I understand the unilateral aspect, but if there's two people in the room, you say, all right, one of you two cuts my grass, I'll give you $25. And one of them immediately says, no, I'm not doing it. The other says, yes, I promise I'll do it. The person that says they'll do it, he's not in a contract with you?
Not yet, because
until
he
he actually does it?
has to cut the grass.
Okay.
And for example, if he only cut half the grass, I don't owe him half the money. I don't owe anything. He has to cut the grass. Okay, now there are a couple conditions that we'll get into on that later on. But do you understand at least the concept of a unilateral contract versus a bilateral? Bilateral, an exchange of promises. Unilateral, an exchange of a promise or an act. Okay, whether it's find the watch, make the highest grade, run the fastest, whatever it happens to be. Okay, next. The next I'm gonna put over here, and I'm gonna ask somebody to help me. I'm gonna list the 4 things in the book. There, and they are valid, void. Not sure I've got the right order here, but I don't care. Voidable, and I don't know if I can get all this in with my finger. Unenforceable. I don't know. It's going to be close. I spelled it right. I think I did. Okay? And if you look in the book, there are these 4 classifications. So for this, I need a volunteer. Come on. Okay. Oh, you were going to come up here? No, you don't have to do that. You want to, or did you volunteer?
I thought you wanted us to go to the front.
No. You know what? Let me take him since I already, because we'll work through this together. Okay? If I were to say to you, what is a valid contract? Could you define a valid contract? What would you say is required to have a valid contract?
All 4 of those?
The 4 requirements. Absolutely right. Now, when I say valid contract, you understand that's a little bit redundant because a contract by definition has all 4 and is valid. So I'm sort of, everybody understand what redundant means? Okay. For instance, if I were to describe a circle as perfect, it's a perfectly round circle. You understand that's redundant. Circles only come in one shape. There's no such thing as an egg-shaped circle by definition. Okay. The next one would be void. Now, this is an oxymoron because if it's void, it's not a contract. If it's a contract, it's not void. But for classroom purposes, I'll refer to it as a void contract. And what would it lack in order to be a void contract?
I would say any one of those. If it doesn't have it, it would be...
Well, you're more than halfway there. Any one or of those.
More.
Well, yeah, sure. Could lack 2 or 3 or all of them. Okay, and it would be void. Okay, oxymoron. Everybody understand? I'll use the term void contract even though it's an oxymoron. Everyone oxymoron? 2 terms that can't be used together. Large shrimp. Military intelligence. Honest lawyer. Okay, you just can't use those terms together. Okay, oxymoron. Now, voidable, if you would like to take a shot at, but this is a tougher one.
I read the chapter, so it's basically not standing legally.
Okay, one or both of the parties to the contract have the ability to get out of the obligations. In effect, to void the contract or to make the contract void as it applies to them. And these come about for several reasons. I'm going to give you just one or two. The list is certainly not exhaustive. But if someone tried to cheat you, they sold you a flat screen TV and they said it was certain dimensions and it wasn't. They said it was new and it wasn't. Okay, and those things were important to you. And I'm skipping some stuff, but you determined that you wouldn't have purchased it if you had known it was both used and small. Okay? So the contract would be voidable to you based on fraud, and so you could get out of it. Now the seller couldn't, but you could. Voidable. Now the last one is by far the toughest, but I'll take a shot. Does anybody know? Unenforceable. Did you know? No?
Is that when it's past the time span where you can actually enforce whatever?
It's possible, but a more common definition.
Like it was never good to begin with, as in
No. What it says, and this is a little bit of a trick question. Remember, I said there were 4 requirements to contracts, but there was a 5th to a few. Where there is a 5th requirement, it has to be in writing, and it's not. Okay, that is this type of contract, like a contract for sale of real estate in Florida. But the contract is not in writing. It's an oral contract. We shake hands on it. Of course, it's not valid because it needs to be in writing. It's not void. It has all 4 of these things. It is unenforceable because it is not in writing. Okay? Unenforceable. And there's some other things, but that's a good example and a thing sort of to hang your hat on at this stage for unenforceable. Doesn't mean illegal. Doesn't mean void. It simply means unenforceable. And it doesn't even mean illegal or you couldn't do it. Selling land in Florida is perfectly legal. We've been doing it for many, many years. Okay, the next one, executed and executory. Executed just means completed. If the contract is executed, it's been completed. In my unilateral example of the watch, somebody's found and returned the watch, I've given them the $50. It's executed. If you have promised, if we've exchanged promises and you're going to paint the wall for me, but you haven't yet painted the wall, or I haven't yet paid you, then it's executory. Okay? Just not completed. Completed and not completed. Now, something that you don't think about, but is true in contracts, when you buy a Starbucks, you don't think about this. When the girl gives you the drink and you give her the money or the credit card, whatever it happens to be, you think that's pretty common and the way it should be. Actually, you're fulfilling one of the basic tenets of contract law, and that is that when one party performs the contract completely, the other party is under an obligation to perform his or her part. So when they make the desired drink according to your specifications, and it's complete, and they hand it to you, then you're under an legal obligation at that point in time, absent some prior agreement, that you will pay them. Now, you don't ever think about that, but that is a big deal when you're talking about something that costs millions of dollars or something that's going to take years to complete or build. Okay, you don't think about that with a drink, but that concept is part of our contract law. Now, but what I'm saying is, if you reach an agreement with the person at Starbucks, and the deal is you don't get paid until the end of the month, and so she'll give you one Starbucks each Thursday night before you come to business law, and on the last Thursday of the month, you pay her for the 5 or 4 drinks that you've gotten. Is that legal? Sure. I think we would probably informally call that running a tab. But if the person at Starbucks agrees to that, is that legal? Certainly. But absent an agreement, it's payment upon performance. One of the basics of contracts. Actually, when I was in law school, I did a lot of things wrong. And one of them was that I'd outgrown my parents' insurance. Now I think you can be 26 or something and still, but way back in the dark ages, I think it was 21, 22 or so. I don't remember. But I had run out of that. I had gone past that in age. And my mother and father were divorced, and my mother were. I'm not going to belittle the situation. I didn't go to school hungry or walk uphill both ways or stuff like that. But my mom didn't have a lot of money, and she treated me well, but didn't have a lot of money. So when her insurance no longer would cover me, she would send me the $50 or $75, whatever it was that you got the student insurance. And anyway, for this year, whatever the year was, I got the check, but contrary to her instructions, I didn't invest it in student insurance. I'm sure I bought textbooks or pizza or beer or something else. It was more important to me at the time. And of course, that's the year when I have some serious operations on my lung and have a collapsed lung and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so after I get out of the hospital, I am trying to earn money to pay back the hospital bill. And I am actually, while I'm in law school, I'm teaching at the junior college up here, my senior year of law school. And actually, wasn't a very good decision on my part. I'm commuting from Jacksonville to Gainesville twice a day. Okay, I commute 234 miles every day. And then take 3 or 4 classes and teach. I think I teach 5. I think I taught 5. But anyway, that's not the point. But I'm going through Stark. If you're familiar with Gainesville and Jacksonville, I go through Stark every day. And I stopped at a little place. It's still there, called Pal's Dairy Freeze or Tasty Freeze or something. A little drive-in, where the girls come out. I guess in the old days on roller skates, but they come out and they put a little tray on the side of your door, and you order hamburgers and milkshake. And so every day I would whip in there and order a chocolate milkshake and a hamburger. And as soon as they brought it out, I would take off. I had a little Volkswagen because I had to get up to the junior college. And so one day the girl came out and said, "You stop here every day?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is my lunch." And she said, "But you immediately take off. You don't ever stay and eat. And you really don't change what, hamburger and a milkshake. That's pretty much what it is for me." And she said, "Well, you know what? You stop here within 5 minutes of the same time." I don't remember what it was, 12:30 or 1 o'clock, whatever. And I said, "I understand, because I'm getting out of my class in Gainesville and I'm on my way to a class in Jacksonville." And she said, "I tell you what, I'll make a hamburger and a milkshake for you every day, and that'll save you 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Is that worth it?" And I said, "Oh, you can't imagine how happy I'd be." When she said, "Okay, every day at, let's just say 12:30, I'll have a chocolate milkshake and a hamburger for you." And I had to say no. And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because a lot of times I don't have the money to pay. And so I have to skip lunch that day." And she said, "I tell you what, I'll run a tab." So she said, if you don't have money, it's okay. When you get money, you can catch up. So in those instances, we had a contract. She provided the hamburger and the milkshake, but we had not violated, but changed the rules of contracts in that I didn't pay her when I got the hamburger and the milkshake. I could pay her at some future date, actually not determined by us at the time, but she made a good deal. I never cheated her. And I think she probably knew that. Okay, I don't know. So you can do that. It's perfectly permissible, but you have to have an agreement to do that. It's not an automatic. Okay, execute and executory. We need that. Okay, the next one. Well, before we leave this, and the last concept I want to talk about in this first chapter is quasi-contracts. But before I do that, I want to stay just for a minute on our reward situation. Remember my watch? Okay, I lost a watch and I was offering $50 for it. Actually, it's a Timex. I thought it was a Rolex, but it's Timex. This isn't worth $50. So let's suppose, and this kind of gives you a foreshadowing of contracts too. I can make an offer to anybody I choose. So let's suppose that I say to you in this class, I'll give anybody registered in BUL 6138 spring 2018, I'll make this offer to any of these people, to you. Only people registered in BUL 6138 can accept this offer, $50 for finding my watch. Okay? So now, is there anybody registered, whether it's distance learning or on campus? Now, first, if one of you finds the watch, do I owe you the $50?
No.
No.
It's got to be yours.
Pardon me?
You said any watch or your watch?
Oh, my watch, the
Oh,
law. Yeah, I owe you $50. Now, there are a couple students that aren't here tonight. Okay? Suppose one of them finds the watch, but that person does not know of the reward. Do I owe them the reward? Do you understand the thing? Somebody who was in class tonight, didn't hear me say it, didn't find out from another student, just hadn't listened to the recording at this point in time, but happens to pick up a watch on the sidewalk, notices that it has my name on the back, and brings it to class next week. Do I owe them the $50?
Yes.
Okay, yes, why?
One of it doesn't say in the four the four requirements that I have to be present and hear you and say, yes, I accept that.
That's right, it doesn't. Okay? Anybody have a different opinion? I like opinions, even if I disagree with them. Okay? Because he's wrong, and it's not so much that he's missed a legal concept. This one, the answer is more logic than law. And the logic here is that the person, even though he was within the group of people to whom the offer was made, okay, was a registered student of class, didn't hear the offer, didn't know of the offer. So from a purely logical perspective, you can't accept an offer the existence of which you are unaware. Can't say yes to answer a question if you've never heard the question. Okay? So in that case, theoretically, I would know that student the $50. Do you understand why? If you don't know that there's an offer, you can't accept it. Even though he did what would normally have been required for acceptance, bring me a watch. He didn't accept my offer because he didn't know of it. Now, let's change the facts just a little bit. Let's suppose that he wasn't here, but he ran into one of you, or he watched the recording, and then tomorrow or the next day found out about the offer. Subsequent to finding out about the offer, he found the watch and brought it next Monday night. Would I owe him the $50 then?
Yes.
The answer is yes. He's within the group of people to whom the offer was made. Although he didn't hear it originally, he found out about it either from the recording or from some secondary source like you. And since he was a person to whom the offer was made and he had knowledge of the offer and he found the watch and presumably returned it, he would be entitled to the reward. Does that make sense? Now you can say, wow, that's kind of strange. But that's kind of what makes the law fun. There are so many little twists and turns and some logic in there. Okay. Now I want to talk about, let's see if I can make this thing work this time. Uh-oh. Okay. How about that? Okay, now we want to talk about the last concept in this chapter. We're going through this chapter way too fast. Okay, I'm going to call that quasi-contract. I'm going to abbreviate contract with a K. Everybody with me on that? It's kind of shorthand. And if you want to use K, fine. If you want to write contract out, it's fine. Now, when we have a quasi-contract, what we have is a situation in which there is no real contract. Okay? That is, we don't have offer acceptance, capacity, consideration, lawful lot. We just don't. But we have a situation that our laws, our judiciary, and our legal system says, wow, while it doesn't meet the requirements of a contract, we want to treat it like a contract. How about that? Okay? So I want to give you a situation, and then we'll talk about the requirements for quasi-contract and see if you agree with this. Okay? Suppose I lived across the street from you, and I met you. You know, we're neighbors. We live across the street, and our houses were built at the same time, and I meet you one day after class. You have some questions about the class, and I answer them, and I say, hey, look, I got these paint chips. I'm going to get my house painted. I'm going to get it painted light blue. And you look at it and say, wow, that's my favorite color too. Okay? So we do that, and my address is 1712 Oak Street, and yours, of course, would be 1721, right across the street. Okay? So you're sleeping in, you're not going to work this day, and you're awakened, I don't know, at 9:30 or so by somebody driving into your driveway in a big truck. It says Acme Painting Contractor. and you see some guy pull some ladders off the top of the truck and break out some big 5-gallon buckets of paint, and he's got a power stirrer and it's stirring it up, and he's throwing tarps over your hedges and shrubbery. Leans the ladder up against the house, takes out a spray can or a roller or whatever, and starts painting your house. And you can see the color of the paint, and it is exactly the color of the paint that I indicated that I was going to have my house painted. You guys are pretty sharp, right? 1712, 1721. I told you I was going to get it painted in the next 3 or 4 days. It's 2 days later. I mean, you figure out what's happened. Guys made a mistake. And you think, well, I like light blue. So instead of going downstairs and talking to him, you sort of roll back over. Okay? At the end of the day, you hear him putting the ladder back on the truck, and you decide to go outside. You walk downstairs and walk outside and inquire, what are you doing? And the guy said, oh, I didn't realize you were in there. Look, I just painted your house. And you look, and sure enough, it's painted, it's beautiful. And you inquire as to why. And he said, oh, I have a work order here to paint it. This is 1712 Oak Street, isn't it? And you say, no, this is 1721 Oak Street. 1712 Oak Street is that house across the street. Everybody got the fact situation? The question I have for you is, do you owe him anything for painting your house? What do you think?
I would think, yeah.
Why?
My opinion, just the monetary aspect of it, the cost of it is significant to the fact where clearly somebody has to pay for it. So,
Okay, somebody who thinks no. Anybody think no?
I don't think you.
Why not?
It was, I mean, their mistake.
Yeah, no, it was clearly a mistake. No question.
Just like if you're in a restaurant, you know, and they bring you the wrong food or something like that. I mean, you're not going to pay for their mistake.
No,
But
don't
you,
use.
what if you ate the food?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
they saw
Yeah, I
that
was going to say
house
normally you
was
send the
being
food back,
painted.
but let's use her example. What if you ate the food?
I mean, you can nowadays you can still do it if you complain hard enough.
Okay, so you say no. I think in this case, the answer is going to be you have to pay for it. And the reason is quasi-contract. And the requirements for a quasi-contract, unlike what we'll call a regular contract, is first, there must be knowledge. Did you have knowledge? The person was painting your house. Yeah, you're upstairs. 2, there must be a benefit. Is getting your house painted a benefit? Yeah, most judges are going to say yes. And the third and last requirement is there must be retention. So what does that mean? That means you have to keep it. So for example, I'll give you an example where we don't have retention. Big Amazon or Best Buy or somebody misdelivers a big new flat screen TV to your home. Do you have knowledge? Yeah. You open the door, you accepted it, you signed for it. Is receiving a flat screen TV a benefit? I think most of us would say yes, even if you have several televisions. How do you get out of paying for it? Simply call up Best Buy or Amazon or whoever it is and say, hey, you guys misdelivered this. I have it, I've got it inside the house, but I don't want it and I don't want to pay for it. So if you don't retain it, that is, you give them the option to come take it back, then there's no legal obligation to pay for it. On the other hand, if you say, hey, they misdelivered it, they made a mistake, I'm going to keep it, the law says it's a quasi-contract and you'd have to pay for it. Yes?
In your example with the painting of the house and such, in a court of law, how would they make you pay? Because they have no idea that you have knowledge of it. Yeah, you roll over in bed and knew what was going on.
Well, what we're going to do in class, and evidence can be a big part of a problem. I'll try to, are you moving the camera too? I'll try to stay in the camera. in this classroom, and evidence is several semesters, but in the classroom, if we say it happened, well, let's just make the assumption that there are cameras or witnesses or something, okay? That way we won't get hung up on that. Now, if the guy goes around painting houses every day, yeah, the court's going to say no, wasn't a real mistake. But do you see, given the, and I use painting because that takes care of the retention problem. Okay, get back the paint. Okay, but you see how the quasi-contract would work? Now, what would happen if, instead of sleeping in, skipping work that day, you get up early, grab your business law book, go to the library and study for a couple hours between 5 and 7:30 or 8 when you have to go to work all day, and then come home and find your house painted. Do you have to pay for it then?
No.
You're shaking your head. Do you have to pay for it?
No,
No. Why not?
because the knowledge requirement. was
No
met.
knowledge. Okay? So now the most important part of this story. What's the moral of this story? Oh, come on. Don't sleep in. Get up early. Get your business law book. Go to the
Get out.
library. Study business law. Then go to work. And you may get your house painted for free. Come on, folks. Get on board here. Right? Business law pays off. Okay? That's the moral of the story. Wow, you guys, I don't know. A little disappointing here. I guess you've been at work. It's been a long day. Okay. Do you have any questions about quasi-contracts? Do you have any questions about anything I've gone over in this chapter? Okay. But what I would like to do now is cover the first portion of the next chapter. Then that'll get us right back, I think, where I want to be. Okay. The next chapter. Let's do this. The next chapter, we're going to talk about offer and acceptance. And remember the first requirement, offer and acceptance, arrow, mutual assent. Okay, well, we're going to talk about what's an offer, how does it work, what are the characteristics of an offer, that kind of thing. So let's go up here and just make it easy for me anyway and write offer. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the characteristics, and as you already know, I try to track the book to make it make sense. And the first thing, and they call them essentials of an offer, but I won't know that I'll do that. But let's talk about the requirements of an offer. The first thing is an offer must be communicated. That is, if I were to mail you, not email, but old-fashioned, if I were to email you an offer, no, I just said email. If I were to mail you an offer in a letter, and the letter were to be lost, and you never received it, since an offer has to be communicated to be effective, there has been no offer. Okay? That is, the offer, I can mail it on day 1, you receive it on day 3, the offer comes into existence on day 3. The day that the offeree receives the offer. Okay, now I just used a new term, so we'll put offeree and offer or. We'll look at the last 2 letters of the word. The one with the double E is the person who receives the offer. The one with the OR is the person who makes the offer. It's not special, and you can change, by the way. Okay? I could make an offer to you, and then subsequently you could make an offer to me. So who the offeror and who the offeree is not particularly significant as long as you know the kind of the rights that each of those people has. So once the offeror makes an offer, it doesn't come into existence until it's received by the offeree. Now, in many cases, that's insignificant because I'm face-to-face with you, or I send an email, although not all emails get through. But presuming the email gets through, the offer is almost instantaneous. Okay? But if for some reason the email or the regular mail or whatever the means of communication is doesn't get through, I give the offer, I tell a friend of mine who's a mutual friend of ours to tell you something, and he or she forgets to tell you, then no offer has been made. Okay? Fair enough? So, And by the way, an offer is only made to the people whom I wish to have it made to. So that an offer is not made to everybody. When I make an offer, it's not made to the world. I can make an offer just to the people on this side of the classroom, to the exclusion of those on my left, or vice versa. Okay? So, and I can make an offer to one person and not to another. I can make an offer for a different amount to different people. Now you might think, well, that's not right. Is it possible that I would offer to sell an old car that I own at one price to my daughter, and yet wouldn't sell it to anybody else for that price? Sure. Okay. So first, I can make offers to whom I choose. I can make offers for the amounts I choose. Okay. And an offer is not effective until it is actually received. Now, your book goes into great detail talking about the intent of the person making the offer, when in fact what they say is true, but I think a little misleading. So when we're making an offer, we like to have the intent of the offeror to make the offer, but we use an objective test. We have a couple tests in law, but and I'll describe both of these. And if you're in some other major, you may say those aren't the definitions of objective and subjective, but for law they are. Okay? An objective test would be a reference to some standard, typically an outside standard, third person. A subjective test would query as to how you feel about it. Okay? So for example, if I were to ask you, how is the temperature in the room? One of you might say, it's a little warm tonight. Another one might say, it's just right. A third person might say, it's a little cool. Do you understand? That's a subjective question. How do you feel the temperature in the room is tonight? Which of those three individuals is wrong? None of them are wrong. If it's a little warm to you and just right to you and a little cool to you, you're all right. Those are subjective answers. You understand? How do you personally feel about it? Subjective. Objective, what's the temperature in the room? An objective answer would be, walk over to the thermostat, it's 72 degrees. Now that may be cool, just right, or warm to some people, but now we have an objective answer, 72 degrees. It's not warm or cool or just right, it's 72 degrees. Okay? So when we're judging an offer, it's an objective standard. And the standard for an offer would be, to determine whether an offer had been made or not, would be, would a reasonable person, having heard what was said, within the context within which it was spoken, believe that an offer had been made? And if the answer to that is yes, then we have an offer. If the answer is no, then we don't. So for example, if, and this may be a guy thing, so the girls may not quite follow this one, but if one of the fellas had just purchased a car, whether it was brand new or just new to him, and he said, hey, professor, I want you to come see my new car. And I walk down, and no matter what I thought, what I would probably say is, wow, I'd give $1 million for a car like that. Can he reach out and say, it's a deal? Did I really make an offer to buy the car for $1 million? No. What was said within the context of what it was said, I was just complimenting the car. Okay, do you understand that? But could I pretend to make an offer with enough authenticity that a reasonable person, having heard what was said, in the context in which it was said, a serious situation, could I convince a person that I'd really made an offer? The answer is yes. I could be pretending, but if a reasonable person would have said, that sounds like a real offer, then you know what? It's a real offer, because we use the objective standard on offers. Now, have I ever personally been involved in a situation like that? No. In fact, I can't even think of a hypothetical in which that would happen. As close as I've ever come to a hypothetical would be that if one of you met me after class in the student center and we were drinking a beer and watching a ball game, and you said, can you give me this stuff about offer again? And I say, sure. Well, there's a classmate. I'm going to go over to him, listen to what I say, and I'll pretend that I'm making an offer to buy his car or to sell him a car. And I do it so well, that when I come back to the table, you say, wow, I see exactly how it works. And so the person to whom I was talking comes over and says, well, when can I pick up the car? And I say, oh, that was just a joke. I was just pretending to show one of your classmates what an offer's like. And you say, I don't think that's very funny. I thought it was real. And somebody had reported it, and a judge or a reasonable person listened to what I said and said, well, it sounds to me like Bob meant it. You know what? Bob means it. You understand what I'm saying? If I act it out well enough, that a reasonable third person, objective standard, would have thought that an offer had been made, and an offer's been made. Very unusual that would happen. Okay? And this is one that's in your book that I don't know exactly why. Preliminary negotiations. Is it possible to negotiate with somebody on something, whether it's a car or a dress or a house, and not buy it? Certainly. Not all not all negotiations turn into offers. How many miles does the car have? What year is it? How many horsepower does it have? What kind of tires are on it? How many bedrooms does the house have? When was it built? How old is the AC? Blah, blah, blah. Just because you negotiate with somebody or inquire as to something doesn't mean you've made an offer. And somehow, particularly younger students think, well, if you start to talk with somebody about a car or a house or something, the end result has to be an offer. No, it doesn't. No. You can go and look at a car lot and they want you to buy the car, but you can say, no, tonight I'm just looking. I don't know. I'm looking at the mileage the different cars give, looking at the different size engines, whatever it happens to be. Okay. Advertisements. Your book. And theoretically, I could make an argument that an advertisement is an offer. Whether you see it online, in the newspaper, on television, a billboard is an offer. But what our courts have done over a long period of time is said, no, even though that's possible, we're not going to do that. It causes too many problems. That an advertisement is not an offer. Okay? An advertisement is an invitation to negotiate. That is, advertisements are put out there by car dealerships and stores and others to get you to come in to look at their inventory or to go online and look at their inventory. That they're not advertising or trying to make an offer to sell a specific item. So it may say shirts on sale regularly, $49.95 on sale for $35. That's not an offer to sell shirts. That's an invitation to get you in to look at the shirts because you can't really say yes or no to that. I mean, what size shirt? What size, for men at least, what size collar? What's the arm length? What style? Short sleeve, long sleeve, pullover shirts, button-up shirts, dress shirts, casual shirts. So it's really an invitation. They try to get you in. Now, someone in the store can still make the offer, but the advertisement itself is deemed not to be an offer, but an invitation to come in to see the merchandise, hopefully, and to enter into a contract. Okay. Now, there is, I believe, I have to look. I've read so many books. There used to be a case called the Great Minneapolis Surplus Store, which is not a good case, but it talks about offers. Good. It's not. Oh, there it is, right there. Lefkowitz versus the Great Minneapolis Surplus Store. That's a summarized case on an offer, and it's an unusual situation. It's not good law, I don't think, but it is a case that is in every freshman law book on contracts, and it has been since the case came out, and it's a very unusual situation. A guy gets in line, one of those first three customers in line get 3 prizes or a prize, and it's like a woman stole or something, I forget, and they end up giving it to him. But and you can read the case. It's kind of a funny case, but not all that legally significant anymore. Okay, let's see. Offers, advertisements. I think That's it.
So if you go to a store,
Mhm.
say you're offering shirts for $34.
Okay.
You go to a store and there aren't any shirts there for $34. Then you can't claim false advertising.
Okay, now what you're doing is you're mixing up two legal theories.
Okay.
Under the theory of contract, the store could advertise shirts that don't exist. Now, the purpose of that would be, I don't know what, because you can't advertise to sell something that you don't own. But that, in and of itself, would not generate a contract.
Okay.
Now, under a different area of law called consumerism, okay, this is called in Florida and the federal, the FTC, which most people refer to as the FTC, and the Florida Trade Commission, which most people refer to as the little FTC, Florida instead of federal, would say you can't do that because that's bait and switch or misleading advertising. And what the rule is in Florida, okay, today is if a store advertises an item and there's a limited supply, I mean, there are 3 shirts, or there's one dress they're going to sell for $1, value at $500. Okay, they have to tell you there's one dress, or 3 shirts, or 10 pounds of filet mignon that we're selling for 10 cents a pound. Okay.
Okay.
They do that, that's legal. If they don't do that, then they have to have enough on hand to meet the anticipated demand. Well, what happens if they have shirts or dresses or steak on, but it doesn't meet the demand? Then under Florida law, they're required to give what are commonly referred to as rain checks. And a rain check is a certificate or a piece of paper evidencing your right to buy steak or dresses or whatever it is for that price at some future date when they would bring in more steak, more dresses, more shirts.
Okay.
Okay, but you understand those are 2 different areas of law. So in contract law, that it would be dumb, but not illegal. In consumer law, it would be illegal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through and just see who makes the offer here. Who makes the offer? And well, first I have to tell you about. Well, if I forget, remind me. Publix. Okay, just say Publix. I have to tell you one of my first experiences, and it's very embarrassing to me, in making an offer. I don't remember what grade I was in. I think it was probably the 9th or 10th grade. I mean, it was. See, I know today you would laugh. It was my first serious girlfriend. Okay, you know, this was my true love, and her family was much more. It wouldn't take much to be more fluent than mine, but was much more fluent. I mean, I grew up in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bath, space heater, no central air. It was a duplex. We were upstairs, my mom and I. She lived in a neighborhood. I don't know how many bedrooms. They had a maid, the full-time maid. She had her own car to drive to high school. Do you get the idea? Big difference. So I had saved up money from a part-time job, and I wanted to get her something really nice for Christmas because this was the girl, and she was really nice. Okay, we never got married. Probably she made some good decisions back there, but so I saved up all the money now, and I'm used to shopping at that French place. I got my clothes. What's it? Oh, J.C. Penney, or Woolworths or someplace like that. Okay, and she pretty much shopped at exclusively high-class women's stores. And this predates all of you, but I want to tell you, there was downtown Jacksonville was a big thing way back when. I mean, even when I was a kid, I'd jump on a bus and ride downtown, and at 10 years old, we'd spend all day downtown, go to 2 or 3 movies, go through all the big department stores downtown, and nobody hurt us, and we'd come home. There were some exclusive men's shops and women's shops downtown, and one of the more exclusive women's shops was called Furchka's. It's no longer in existence. It's been out of existence for a long time. But I'm used to going into a place like Penny's or Walmart or something like that, where you walk around and kind of scrounge around and find what you want and finally hand it to somebody and hopefully pay for it. Oh my gosh. So I'm a little nervous going in because this is an exclusively women's shop. There's no men's stuff in here. So I go in and the first thought is, I don't know that I'm going to even like being in here. But I walked in and I thought, well, I'll get the lay of the land. I won't say anything to anybody. I'll just kind of walk around until I'm comfortable. Well, I walk in, and of course, in those kind of stores, somebody meets you at the door. May I help you? Yeah, no, I don't know. So this lady who was very nice, can I help? Well, I'm trying to find a Christmas present for my girlfriend. Oh, that's terrific. What did you have in mind? Well, I have a sweater. Oh, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to work. She's going to show me there are going to be a dozen sweaters, 3 or 4 different kinds I'll pick up. Oh my God, there were 1,000 different sweaters, okay? All sizes, all shapes, all price ranges. I am just overwhelmed. And so the sales lady is still trying to help me. She realizes I'm 14 or 15 or whatever, 16, and don't really know where I am and what I'm doing. And so she tries to narrow it down, and this is where it got embarrassing. She said, well, what kind of sweater are you looking for? Now, does everybody in here understand? I don't know that you use these anymore. There are really 2 types of sweaters, okay? Pullovers and cardigans. Do you understand the difference? One has no buttons. You pull it over, and one unbuttoned, okay. I wanted a cardigan. But, the pressure's on here. And it's not a term I use very often. And I'm stumbling around, and I'm trying to remember the word cardigan, and I'm trying to not look like an idiot. I'm trying to act like I know what I'm doing. And so, and of course, pressure's building while she's staring at me while I'm trying to think of the word cardigan. And so I blurted out, I want a sweater for my girlfriend that I can unbutton down the front. Now, there's probably more truth in that than I would ever care to admit, but it's not what I wanted to say to the sales girl. I want a sweater for my girlfriend that I can unbutton down the front. I can only remember once all the words got out and I realized what I had said, I turned around. And so I couldn't go back into that store for like 6 or 8 years for fear that the saleswoman might be there and might say, there he is. Oh my gosh. I'm sure I was red for another hour or 2 after that. And again, some of my male friends have said, sometimes under pressure, the truth comes out. And I don't know. I don't admit that might have been the truth, but I guess anything's possible. Okay, but now let's go to Publix. Who makes the offer in Publix? See, I tried to make an offer, didn't quite work. Who makes the offer? Do the customers, or does the checkout girl? Who makes the offer? That would be an easy question.
Publix does.
Who?
Publix does.
Publix makes the offer by putting, I don't know if they put prices up I guess they do put prices and the little barcodes. They don't put price on the item, they just put it on the little, yeah. And so what happens if the item is mismarked? Do they have to sell it to you for the mismarked price?
They do.
So anything, if you have money for in there, you can buy. Wonder if you're underage and want a beer. You have the money for the beer. They have to sell to you? Or cigarettes? How about you want to buy something which is out of date? And they just haven't pulled it off the shelf, but the girl at the, you know what I'm talking about? Where the barcode reader, does she have to sell to you? No, she doesn't. Okay. So that should be a huge hint. Who makes the offer? The customer makes the offer. Okay?
Even though it's a set price, you can't negotiate at all.
Well, first of all, does the law say you can't negotiate a price?
It doesn't, but the price is already set.
We negotiate prices on a lot of things. I think cars would be the most obvious example. I hope nobody pays the manufacturer's suggested retail price on a car. If you do, you're making a big mistake. So no, in Publix, the customer makes the offer to buy. The Publix girl can look at it and say, it's out of date, it's been recalled, you're not old enough. I mean, whatever the reason. She can simply say no. Now, what you said about set prices is interesting. In fact, there's no law on that, okay? And I actually took a box of cereal as an experiment up to the front and said, how much? And it was like $3.50 for a box of cereal. And I said, wow. I said, I'll give you $3. And she just looked at me. And I said, what? She said, it's $3.50. And I said, I know. I said, I'm offering $3. And she said, no, which is what you would expect. And I said, well, don't you ever discount the prices? And she thought for a second and said, well, yeah. She said, if the labels are torn or it's damaged or something like that. So I took the box and I went, okay. And I thought, okay, we're going to negotiate. And I thought she was going to say, okay, $3. But you know what she said instead? Manager. But I knew the manager, okay? And he knew what was happening. But you understand what I was trying to do? I was trying to see how much they were going to go. And she did the right thing. She called the manager, okay? And I'm sure they get nuts in public, other than me, from time to time. But at least legally, theoretically, could you bargain over things? And the answer is yes. Now, in many societies, okay, some of you may be from a society where they expect you to bargain. I mean, you go to the market, and if they say it costs 75 cents, they really expect you to make an offer. Oh, I see you shaking your head. Is that?
Yes, in Colombia, we usually say, this price, 100. I can pay 90. Okay, it's okay. Okay, because all people more price for negotiate. Yeah.
And so it's common.
And everything is common.
In everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you buy food, you negotiate the price of the fish or the meat or the
No
vegetables?
supermarket, but in little stores, yes.
See?
But supermarket, no.
Okay, now in the United States, we don't do that, but that doesn't make it illegal. I mean, the rest of the world does it, and we do it in cars, right? Mm-hmm. Houses. Now, I didn't know this, but somebody told me, fellas, jewelry. When you get ready to buy a diamond ring and it says $1,100, you might want to say, I'll give you $750 for it or something. Okay? Oh, I found that out too late. Okay? Okay, but so negotiation is possible. Now, it's not all that important who makes the offer and who makes the acceptance, but you do have to remember the person to whom the offer is made sort of has the last word, can say no.
Here in Garacel, you can offer. In Garacel, the price say $10. Say, no, $8.
Do you do that?
Yes, and say, okay. Okay.
Oh, so they
Yes, in Garacel, you can.
I'm going to say flea markets, but other places?
Yes, in
It's
Garacel.
like a garage sale.
Garage sale.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Free market, yes.
So next time I go shopping, I may want to take you with me.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, let's go on. Gosh, I don't have that much more. Auction sales. Who makes the offer in an auction? I'm up here offering this beautiful leather hand-tooled glasses case. Who will offer me $50?
Cut the price in half.
Huh? You'll offer me $50? You have cash?
I don't. I'll pay it back eventually.
Did you make an offer?
I said to cut the price in half and then I'll put my paddle up.
Okay, but now, who is the offeror and who's the offeree? I am who?
The offerer.
You.
I'm the person making the offer, or
No,
I'm
we're
making the
making
person receiving the offer?
You're receiving.
Who's making the offer?
We are.
We are.
That's right. It's not me. It's not, if I say, who will give me $50 for this, am I making an offer to sell it for $50? No. And the reason is, because the first person who raised her paddle or her hand, then we have a contract. If I made an offer and you made an acceptance, not really much of an auction. So what I am doing is soliciting offers, asking you to make offers, and if she offers $10 and you offer $12 and you offer $13, once I get the highest offer that I can get, then I would normally say, oh, I accept the offer of the beautiful lady in the brown dress. Okay? So you're right. The auctioneer doesn't make the offer. the people in the audience do. Now, another thing your book points out, and I have to be honest, I ask questions on these things, but I hated it when I was in school, and the teacher didn't use the book. You know, I thought, back in my day, I spent $40 for this book, teacher didn't use it. So I'm going to make sure I talk about just about everything in the book. In auction sales, if the owner, of course I'm not the owner, I'm the person running the auction. If the owner has said, Bob, I want to sell the glasses case, but I'm afraid to just sell it for anything. So there's a minimum price. If you don't get at least $3 for it, then don't sell it. Okay, it's worth at least three or more. That's called a reserve price, or reserve, with reserve. So when I show you the glasses case, I have to say, or have announced earlier, that this item has a reserve on it. Who will give me $1 for it, $2? Now, when the bidding breaks the reserve price, that means it's going to be sold. I, of course, announced that because psychologically, that's what people want. They want to make sure they can buy something. So with reserve means there is a minimum price below which I will not sell the item. And I don't know, every now and then I saw some car auctions on TV the other day, and in many cases it didn't make the reserve. And what they would say would be the bidding will go on, and they drive the car away. Okay? But you understand what reserve means. There's a minimum price. Without reserve means if one person offers 1 penny, I have to sell it. Without reserve, no minimum price. With reserve, minimum price. Question? Okay. How definite does an offer have to be? Well, you would certainly like for it to be something that you could say yes or no to. But in fact, in our legal system, it doesn't have to be nearly that definite. No? So how about if I can come up with an offer or a contract which you can accept, in which both the price and the quantity are unknown? Can the contract be definite enough to be enforceable if both the price and the quantity of goods is unknown? And the answer is not always, but in this case, yes. Okay, let's start off with one of the major things in a contract. I think you would agree, the quantity of goods. Let's suppose, for example, that I own an orange grove. Okay? And I want to sell my oranges. And one of you works for Minute Maid. And you come around to me and you say, Bob, how many boxes of oranges did you grow last year? And I say, I grew 1,200. And you say, Bob, let's see if we can't enter into a contract. We want to buy 1,200 boxes of oranges from you. And I say, I don't know. Last year was a good year. I'm not sure that was my best year in the last 5. I only produce 1,100 boxes. You might say, okay, we'll buy 1,100. I say, well, I suppose I produce 1,200. I don't want to sell you 1,100 and then have to try to scout around to find somebody to buy another 100 boxes. So we go round and round, and what we agree is that the quantity will be all the oranges that I grow in my orange grove. Okay, do you see that? You don't care. You're going to buy 1,000,000 boxes of oranges. Whether you buy 1,200 for me, or 1,180 for me, or 1,203 for me, you could care less. But to me, it makes a big difference, because I'm going to sell them all to you. I'm not going to have to worry about being short and having to make up the difference, and I'm not going to have to worry about having 50 extra boxes and having to go sell them to somebody else, maybe out on the street somewhere. Okay? So do you understand? We don't know what the quantity is. We will. When will we know? I don't know. The harvest for oranges takes place in the neighborhood of November 15th. So what we'll say is, once you harvest all your oranges, you get them all in boxes, count the boxes, then we'll know. So does everybody understand that we don't know how many boxes of oranges I'm going to grow, but that you're going to buy them all, and that's okay with both of us? Fair enough? Okay. Then the next problem would be, well, how much are you going to give me or the oranges. Now, these numbers may be really dumb, okay, because I don't know anything about oranges. But I say, well, there's been some bad weather, some hurricanes, there's been some bad weather around the world. I think oranges are going to go for over $5 a box. And you, for Minute Maid, say, oh no, our projections are that oranges in November are going to be set for November delivery are going to be selling for about $4 a box. We go back and forth, and I say, I'm not selling them for $4 a box. And you're saying, Bob, I can't give you $5 a box. So what we do is we agree that on the price on November the 15th on the Chicago Board of Exchange for navel oranges, and I don't know if they come in grades or not, okay, grade A navel oranges, which is what I have. Whatever the closing price per box on the Chicago Board of Exchange on November 15th will be what you give me for each box. So now on February the 15th, I agree to enter into a contract with you to sell all my oranges, price to be the closing price on the Chicago Board of Exchange on November 15th. Is that definite enough? And the courts have said yes. And do you see why? It benefits both of us not to put the number of boxes in. And I think the price is going to be higher. I could be wrong. You think it's going to be lower. You could be wrong. But there's going to be a price out there at the close of business for navel oranges. And what we'll do is we'll take the number of boxes I've grown times the price, and we've got a contract. Is that definite enough? Can you have a contract in which neither the quantity nor the price is in the contract? And I hope you would say, wow, 5 minutes ago I would have said no. But now I can see how that works. And this, by the way, this is not some fluky thing that never happens. This happens all the time, as you, I think, can well imagine.
Isn't that just like commodity trading, like they do with gas?
Yeah. So
like options.
Now, and the way you level that out, you can buy and sell futures too, by the way. So the futures market has a way of taking volatility away from some of the commodities, and everything from pork bellies and beef and eggs and cattle and milk and gasoline and natural gas. All those things. But do you see how you can have it where I would like to say, boy, you have to have all the details. Here's the case where you have almost no details.
What did you call that definitive? What did you call that earlier? You said
well, what we're doing is we're looking at how definite the terms of a contract have to be. Now, if we were just starting, I would like to say, if I'm going to buy this chair, I want to know the details on the chair. I want to know the price of the chair and the delivery of the chair and all that. But what I did here was I went, instead of saying you have to know the price and the quantity and the description, which you would all say, well, sure, naturally, common sense. You understand what I did? I took and flipped it and said, we don't know the quantity, we don't know the price. Is that good enough? And now all of you agree with me that it's possible that it could be good enough, given the circumstances. Okay? Okay, a couple more things, and then we're going to stop. Auctions at open terms. And you can have open terms like these. Okay, output and requirement contracts. Then we're going to stop. Let me erase the board. Wow, I was on a roll there too. Okay, output. This contract is a type of contract, we'll start with output, in which, let's say I make peanut butter, okay? Or I own a coal mine. It really doesn't make any difference. And well, let's start with peanut butter. And Mr. Publix comes by my factory and eats some of my peanut butter. He says, Bob, that's the best peanut butter in the whole world. I say, I know. And he says, I'd like to buy some of that for my Publix stores. And I say, okay, I'll sell it to you for $1.25. I don't know if there's a standard size jar, a pound jar. I don't know if that's true. $1.25 a pound. Mr. Publix says, okay, well, it's keeps the margin pretty close there. can you do any better than that? And I say, oh, how many are you going to buy? He said, oh, I'm going to buy a lot of them. How many jars of peanut butter do you produce? I produce 1 million jars a year. I'll promise to buy 800,000 at $1.25 a pound. Or I say, Mr. Publix, if I don't have to incur any selling expenses for anybody else to sell the rest of what I manufacture, if you'll buy my entire output, okay, approximately 1 million pounds, 1 million jars, I'll sell them to you for $1 a jar. Now, how is that advantageous to Mr. Publix? He gets a lower price. How is that advantageous to me? I don't have any selling expenses. Now, I'm going to produce 1 million jars of peanut butter, and I have somebody who's going to buy a whole million. Now, do we have to agree on exactly a number? No. I can say, last year I produced about 975,000. I think we have some better machinery. I think it's going to be a little bit higher. And now, there's a good faith implicit in that. You can't, if you're using one workforce, one crew, 8 hours, 40 hours a week, you can't put on 3. Okay, you have to be relatively the same. So whether Publix ends up buying 985,000 jars or 1,010,000, he's going to buy my entire output. Very similar to the Orange Grove. Advantageous to me, no selling expenses. I drop the price. Advantageous to Mr. Publix, he thinks he can sell this peanut butter because it's so good. Fair enough? Okay, the other type, and that's completely legal, by the way. The other type is a requirement type contract, okay? And let's use the JEA, which they're talking about selling, okay? Does everybody understand what the JEA is? Produces electricity in this area and can use different types of fuel. Can use coal, can use natural gas, can use fuel oil, okay? So let's suppose that somebody who works for the JEA says, we have to ensure that we have a source of fuel. See, some cases you can say, we run out, we just turn our lights off, who cares? But the JEA can't do that. The JEA has to produce electricity. Too many people need it. So they go out and they make contracts for how many million barrels of oil, how many million cubic feet of natural gas, how many tons of coal, they do all that. But then they go to one of these places and they say, we think natural gas is going to be really the main thing we're going to use. We want to make sure that we have plenty of natural gas. So they go to a natural gas producer. I can't come up with a name, but it doesn't matter. Okay, ABC Gas Company, and the JEA says, we don't know how much we're going to buy because it depends on the price of natural gas. If coal goes down real low or fuel oil goes down real low, we may buy more of that. But we promise to buy all the natural gas that we use from you. What price will you sell to it? Now, we may not use any, but we're a big utility, and we may use millions and millions of cubic feet. And so the natural gas company says, okay, we'll sell it to you for $3.05 per million cubic feet, and we have enough natural gas that no matter how much you need, we can supply that. And see, that protects the utility. Okay, we can get natural gas at that price. And this might be a little bit higher than the natural gas price right now. But if we really need it, we can get it. Okay, so maybe you're a restaurant and you agree to buy all your requirements of steak from this meat company or all your requirements of vegetables from this produce company. Okay, does that make sense? So there are advantages in a requirements contract for both sides as well. It guarantees a source for the buyer. It guarantees a supply for the buyer. Well, I guess a supply for the buyer, and it guarantees the customer for the seller if the price is there. So you may say, well, you're not promising to buy any, so we'll promise to sell you for $3.05. Right now, you can buy it for $2.95 a million cubic feet, but we promise to keep some in reserve for you just in case, if you need it. Now, you may not need it, but if you need it. Okay. Now, there's a huge difference in buying all the eggs I want from you and all the eggs I use or require from you. Okay, I'm a restaurant. All I want from you is no contract at all. Hey, if I want to buy eggs, I'll buy eggs. If I don't want to buy eggs, I won't buy eggs. No contract there. No obligation to buy under any circumstances. If I buy all the eggs or bread or paint or shirts or coal from you that I use or that I need, then there's an obligation, at least a potential obligation. You see the difference? What I want from you, what I need, require, use from you. Two different. What I want from you imposes no obligation on the buyer, and hence, no obligation on the seller. Does that make sense? If there's an obligation on the buyer to buy all his requirements, then there's an obligation on the seller to be in a place to provide those requirements. Okay, now I'll say, are there any questions? Okay. I will let you go. I will bring the test next week. And for the people, are we still online?
Yes.
Okay. For the people that are on distance learning, again, I think you do better if you come to the class. You are certainly welcome. I know several of you are out of town, but you are welcome. And if you would like to come, I'll get the building number, and it is the College of Education and Health Education and Human Services, right next to the College of Business, and it is room 2120. I welcome you to come up here and join us. I think you will learn more. And with that, question?
Just for next class.
For next class, let's finish
follow
this
the
chapter.
syllabus, or
Pardon me?
for what we need to cover.
Yeah, we want to finish chapter 10, and I'd like for you to read chapter 11. I don't know how far I'll get into chapter 11. Okay? And thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is building 57.
Oh, okay. Are we still on?
Yes.
Okay, and then those who are distance learning, this is building 57. The room number is 2120-2120. Second floor, building 7. Class starts at 6:10 p.m. on Thursday nights. Get here early. There's a huge demand for seats. And free beer if you get here early.
This call has been disconnected. Thank you for joining.